Welcome to the world of roguelike adventures and dungeons 2. This mod pack is a one and all inclusive pack for those who are hungry Minecrafters. It hit a special spot for me, so allow me to show you what makes this pack so sick. With access to 1,500 and more quests, a useful shop and a coin system, there are many ways to unlock and track your progress. With over 100 different biomes and many different dimensions, you'll never run out of places to visit and realms to conquer. The pack focuses heavily on nomadism, giving you the freedom to traverse the world as you see fit. This pack also offers craftable structures, so this is pretty much every adventurer's dream come true. With many additions to farming and cooking, you can also enjoy peaceful days when you're not exploring the dangerous world. And for the wizards out there, this pack even offers some magical mods to spice up the old medieval experience. Generally speaking, this pack revolves around roguelike experiences, adventures, and dungeons. This is made possible with the crazy amount of different equipment sets, trinkets, material types, different enchantments, the RPG skill system, and so much more. After defeating the Wither, the game becomes much more difficult. Mobs have more health and deal more damage, different types of mobs show up, and the raids of the undead become much more prominent. As well as when you defeat the Ender Dragon, the game then goes into the plus version, meaning that the mobs have even more health, even more damage, and there is so much more shiny loot. So, you still following, right? Alright, let's get into 100 Days of Hardcore RAD 2. Let's get it!
Oh my god! Oh! Oh my fucking god! Oh! 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 No! Get the camera! Money! Money! Oh my god!
And with that, we have officially started our RAD 2 100 Days. This series is going to be an absolute banger, I can already tell you that. It was so much fun playing through this mod pack. And as you can see, we start off with a pretty good set of items. We get an enigmatic amulet, which gives us some extra bonuses. We start off with a starter house, and we got this huge GUI of a quest pack. In this pack, you can see that we have a ton of different things. We have new dimensions. We also have a dodge, as you can see here. This dodge pretty much means that I can evade mobs, and it's really easy to bind it to another key. Now, we also have a progressive difficulty system and progressive bosses. Pretty much what it waters down to is that every time you kill a Wither, the Ender Dragon gets stronger. When you kill the Wither, all of the mobs get stronger, and when you kill the Ender Dragon, all of the mobs get even stronger. Now we start off with a cactus sword, which basically deals no damage, and we have to increase our levels of mining, excavation, gathering, woodcutting, endurance, combat, and all that good stuff. Now, these experience levels are gained by using the skill. Now, as you can see, I cannot use a stone pickaxe yet. I first had to increase my mining level a little bit. After that, it was time to take on this tower. There were a couple of zombies inside, and I was able to dispatch them really easily. It did take a lot of hits because I'm still using this cactus sword. But as you can see, my combat level goes up pretty easily. I also get a really cool pop-up and some fireworks. Now, as you can see, I need combat level 25 for an iron sword, which will take a little bit of time. Nonetheless, I was ready to conquer this tower, kill all the mobs inside, and raise my levels. We got another combat level, and we finished off that zombie. As you saw in the introduction, this mod pack is focused heavily around nomadism, exploring, and MMORPG level grinding. Now, the cool thing is that all of these things are what I look for in a mod pack. So if you guys are already wanting to play this mod pack right beside me, put this video on the side page, launch your Minecraft, install RAD 2, and get to grinding, boys, because this pack can be a really long one. As you can see, mobs can also drop some enchanted scrolls, which give you different buffs according to what the scroll has inscribed on it. This one gave me Be-Energized, but I do not know what Be-Energized means. So I just activated it and I went to town on these mobs. I also got some extra combat levels and I was almost done with conquering this tower. Nighttime set pretty fast and during the night I grinded away. I think the Be-Energized gave me some extra damage as I was dealing 3 to 6 damage to these mobs. As you also saw, I got an extra knowledge of death, which means that I have another skill tree to progress in. Now this skill tree is focused mainly around after you die what happens to your items, so it was pretty useless for us. There is only 1 or 2 skills in that skill tree that are applicable to us, and we'll get into that later. First, I wanted to do some more exploring, because as you know, this mod pack will have a ton of different things to find. The first thing that I found was a sky base. Now, this base was littered with mobs, absolutely filled. So I found myself a high place to be able to kill them safely. As you can see, they have 100 health and 30 armor points. Pretty much, they're an absolute tank of a unit. I almost got ambushed by this guy coming out of the door, but I was able to block his passageway easily. After that, I went down and I gathered up some more stone and some more wood in order to get set up with a small temporary base. I needed to get a couple of chests installed to filter through all of the items that I got from this sky base. The rest of the night I pretty much spent grinding away at these mobs because they have so much health they could easily give me a lot of combat levels. As you can see, we're already progressing towards the 20s and I needed 25 in order to use an iron sword. We were getting really close, so I could almost ditch away those stone tools. I also raised up my archery level a little bit because archery was one of the things we will need in the late game. I got hit a couple of times in order to increase my endurance levels, and when the sun came out, I wanted to go down and get some more wood. I gathered up some coal, as well as some extra wood, and then we were back in the sky base destroying the spawners. These spawners also give a lot of experience, which was going to help us to be able to enchant later on. I found a big stash of coal and I got some extra experience. I blocked off the route of these mobs so they couldn't get to me, and I wanted to get more combat experience. I mined my way through the redstone. I know it shouldn't be done like this, but it was the only way I had to get to this item spot. Now these items inside of these chests were actually really good, and I got a really good sword. It had Slayer and Enigmatic Resonator, which pretty much means I deal more damage to mobs and I have a chance to crit according to the amount of souls I have. The Knowledge of the Death skill tree is what you can see here. It gives me extra bonuses to the scrolls and potions. It gives me a Shadow Walker ability, which improves my stealth and reduces the area that mobs can notice me in. And it also had some Treasure Hunter, which pretty much means that I will get more loot from undead mobs, which was really cool. So I spent my first point into Treasure Seeker, and I also got one into Shadow Walker. The rest of this Knowledge of Death was not applicable. As you saw, it applies to my gravestone, and we are not planning on dying. 0 death, boys! 0 deaths, that's what we're going for. I killed the remaining of the mobs, and I got a lot of extra levels, and I mined up all of the spawners. As you can see, these mobs can spawn with a variety of different armor sets, tools, weaponry, and shields, which makes this pack even more difficult. I was thinking to myself, if mobs already have 100 health right now, what will it be at the end of this mod pack? I also found this cool Heart of the Earth, which gives me extra experience when I'm doing some gathering professions. And as all of you know who play MMORPGs, when you get bonuses to your experience gains, that is some big stuff. So I knew this was an endgame item, and I know I had to cherish it with all of my life.
Stop! You violated the law!
The moon came out and I was exploring, and that's when I got ambushed by this crazy guy with a bow. I was really scared for my life here because we were only into the first couple of days and I got ambushed by something very strong. This was giving me chills. I had the feeling I was going to die here. I was dodging, bobbing and weaving, and I was making way to get away from this mob. That's when I fell into a hole and I thought everything was over. I got ambushed by a ghost as well, but I was able to mine this dirt block and get away safely. The guy with the bow had apparently given up on chasing me, which was good news. I was able to dispatch of this ghost, and I was going to be back on my way to exploring. I still had to find a place to set up my base, which was the next item on the to-do list. But before that, I used a life-saving potion and I let myself be attacked by mobs in order to increase my endurance level. Because we needed 15 levels in order to be able to use iron armor, which was also one of the big things that was on my list. I had to get set up with the basic necessities of iron tools, iron armor, and some good weaponry. I finally figured out a good spot to put my base down, and I didn't notice the dragon in the back. And as you'll see later on in the series, this dragon was going to mean a lot of trouble for me. I had a difficult time choosing which house to make, so I chose the subaquatic style because it had an outer layer of water protecting it. So I was protected against creepers and fire dragons. But sadly for me that was an ice dragon. And that was going to, be a real pain in the ass. But like I always say, ignore your problems until they become too big. This is absolutely not life advice, but it works for now. I first spent some time doing some gathering. I needed to get some wood and some dirt, and I used my Heart of the Earth. I crafted my first set of iron armor, and I had some magic protection. I also found this real cool wandering trader that was outside of my base, and he had some really good trades. I was pretty sad I didn't have any emeralds and no diamond boots, because otherwise I could make a really good trade with that guy. Apparently my base also had a mine shaft that was already pre-built, which made it really easy to go down to bedrock level to gather up some materials. I burned through a couple of pickaxes, I got some basic materials, some iron, some coal, some random new stuff, and I also got some source gems. Now source gems are used for the magic section of this mod pack, which I would get into later. I first wanted to spend my time gathering up and building up my strength in order to be able to be protected from the world, because we only have one life, so we better cherish it. I went to bed after a good mining spree and I got the achievement of Sweet Dreams. I made my first set of iron tools and I was feeling really happy. The only problem being that I could not use the tools yet. The dragon hadn't come out and he wasn't bothering me yet, so I still kept on ignoring the problem. I should have probably relocated by this time, but I was way too lazy to relocate my base again. And then I unlocked my first trinket. Look at that, the spider. I had a feeling it was gonna be something cool, but it was much better than cool. I could infinitely climb trees, walls, and anything that could be climbed like a spider. It was insane. This was going to make looting like a loot and dash, like, you know, a dine and dash when you go to a restaurant and you don't pay and you run away. Like, I was gonna do that with dungeons. I was gonna break in, climb the walls, get the loot, and get out. Again, this is not life advice. Please don't take me too serious. As you can see here on the GUI, there was a lot of things that I could claim, as well as some quests to give you an option to claim experience in a certain type of profession. So I spent my first 2 quests on getting some gathering experience in order to unlock my iron tools faster. I also got some of this randomized ore. Now this randomized ore is, as it says, gives you a random item when you mine it. Now please watch the experience gains from this randomized ore. 105 mining experience, like 60 gathering experience, it's crazy. These ores are really good. I leveled up 3 times while mining that stuff. I finished up getting my iron set and I was feeling good. I felt protected, I felt like I could take on the world, but I couldn't have been more wrong. I slept the night away feeling good about myself, and I went out. And that's when I got faced by the harsh reality that iron armor doesn't mean shit. I still almost get one-tapped. Back in the mines I was exploring, and I found my first named mob that I could take down. It was Madam Ebloskel the Questionable. And yeah, like the achievement says, he wasn't that strong. I did, however, get some pretty good items from him. I got a helm that gave me a lot of extra stats, some extra health, and more damage reduction. During the nighttime, I farmed up some wood and I made my first diamond tool, a diamond pickaxe. But as you can see, I need level 40 in gathering in order to use it, so we were still quite a ways off. I decided it was going to be a good idea to put this efficiency 5 on a shovel in order to extremely maximize my gathering experience. But I didn't really think about the durability, so you'll see that later. I went back into the mines to increase my gathering level and get some more basic materials, and I made an iron-plated shield. Now this shield gives me extra endurance in combat levels, which is really good. And as you can see, I cannot mine waystones, so there is only 2 ways to get extra waystones. The first way is to craft new waystones, and the second way is to buy them through the shop. Now I found a really good cheat code in order to get some gathering experience, and that is by mining bookshelves. I finished off some of the witches that were inside of this building, and as you can see, I got a ton of gathering experience and woodcutting experience from this. This was going to really speed up the process of getting levels in order to use better tools. And I unlocked my second trinket slot. The second trinket slot was already 30 levels that I had to pay up for that, which is a hefty price when you're just starting out. I got some obsidian from this dwarven trader, and that means I finally had enough materials to make my enchanting table. Now, enchantments are going to be a thing that really put me above all the rest, because there are so many different enchantments in this mod pack. It's really cool to see how mod packs have evolved back from 8 years ago when I first started playing. So I finalized my enchanting table and I tried enchanting my pickaxe, which gave me smartass. And I didn't really spend too much time looking up what it does, so I can't really tell you what it does. I just know it was a good first enchantment, alright? Back in the GUI, I finally was able to claim a ton of the quests. I also got a potion of the bear spirit, which was really cool. And I bought my first waystone. I had to get at least 1 waystone set up in my base, so I had a way to teleport back when I was exploring. And with that, this base was starting to feel like home. I had a place to go back to, I had a waystone, and I was finally starting to get a good foothold in this world. I then found a bunch of iron tools and some iron, as well as a place where villagers clumped up. This was a mine shaft, and it was a good thing that I brought a bow with me. This made me able to dispatch of them really easily. I used my sword with Slayer, and then I got withered for some reason. I'm not sure what withered me, but it was quite scary. I collected a lot of flint, and I found my first underwater dungeon. Now, I didn't have any infinite breathing, so I wasn't going to mess around with those guys just yet, because that could mean instant death. I finally raided a graveyard, and I didn't realize it, but if you break the chest, the ghost doesn't spawn, and if you don't break the chest, the ghost will spawn. I increased my knowledge of death, and I went back to my base. I also learned from my past mod packs, and the simple storage mod was installed in this mod pack, so that was definitely something I had to set up pretty quickly. I slept the night away, and I was ready for the next day. I first started by claiming some quests and getting some more endurance experience, and I got some extra levels as well. We were already level 45. Now, this smartass enchantment apparently was able to locate ores in exchange for damaging me. So I thought of this great idea to damage myself to increase my endurance level, but I only got a small portion of experience for the amount of health it took, so that wasn't really worth it. Then it was finally time to get started on making the simple storage. I crafted up the first set of blocks that I needed, I crafted the hub and a ton of chests, and I started hooking them up to my network. And I finally had my storage network running. I spent about 4 days by setting up my base because it was waterlogged. Everything was waterlogged. So I also made a auto smelter to improve my smelting after mining sessions, and I hooked that up to my network as well, which was actually starting to feel good. I had an easy way to store all of my stuff, I could go mining without really thinking about it, and I was able to smelt all of my ores really quickly. Then I found a giant mine shaft while I was mining. And with that, I found the magic mirror, which was a really big find. This magic mirror allows me to infinitely teleport home whenever I feel the need to. It has a small cooldown, but this item is really strong in a mod pack that focuses on exploration. So I was really happy. These days couldn't have started better. Well, I say that, but if I would find the knowledge of the ages, I would be settled for life. I had some spare TNT and I used that to do some TNT mining, but it didn't really amount to much, so I went back to my base. I still had to finish up making my network, and I hooked up, finally, my auto smelter to my network. This was really big. I also had some extra extraction modules, so I know I could use that to place that next to my backpacks, so it would suck up all the items from my backpack. I also did some enchanting and I got some extra range on my pickaxes, which was big. And then I found some diamonds! The first diamonds of this series, look at that. While I was mining, I also found some gold ore and some more source gems. And this range was pretty crazy on the pickaxe. I also gathered up some lapis lazuli and amber, and I unlocked my third trinket. The second trinket you saw was a wither nail, pretty much meaning that whenever I hit a mob, I will wither them. And that's when I found another named mob, and this guy was pretty strong. Luckily, he was too tall in order to chase me. He had a whip and some ocelot armor, which I thought looked really cool. I was able to easily take him down with a cheese strat, but it was all fine. He dropped a common ocelot boots. Now, I wasn't ready to use these boots yet because they would break really easily. They were also not better than my iron gear, so I decided to skip on them. I then found a resonance 4 pickaxe and I used my magic mirror to get home. The next day, I got immediately started on checking out what items I could make with sapphire, because sapphire looks pretty cool and it was a little bit stronger than iron. I also repaired all of my tools, and I mined up some pumpkins thinking this would increase my gathering, but it didn't. It only amounted to farming. Then I found a woodland mansion. Now, these things are filled with strong illagers. I raised my levels, and then I got struck by this guy in leather armor. He dealt a ton of damage, so I needed to run away from him, and I wanted to look for a much easier dungeon. I found another roguelike dungeon, and I decided I would conquer this until as far as I could go. I found some enchanted tools, I found some ender pearls, some cool loot, and there were a ton of mobs which would increase my combat level. We were slowly making our way to level 45 in order to use the diamond sword. Ran across some skeletons who had exploding arrows, which was really scary, so I decided to drink a life-saving potion in order to be able to take them down. This potion gives me an insane amount of regeneration and gives me a ton of extra hearts. I definitely needed it as these guys also poisoned and withered me. I killed the guy in the flip-flops and then I wanted to kill all of the remaining skeletons. I got hit a ton of times, all of my armor took a load of damage and I lost my helmet and now my boots were about to break. I did reach another level in archery and 2 more levels in endurance, so this was already a successful run. I used my magic mirror to get home and it was still not late enough to sleep. So I decided to store all of the stuff away and organize my chest a little bit. I wanted to see what loot I had all gotten, and then I claimed the quests for making my storage. I also submitted some of these monster coins, which gave me the ability to get extra experience in a skill that I like, and I was back on the grind. I repaired all of the armor that had taken an insane amount of damage, and then my anvil broke sadly. I made my first sapphire weapon. Now, sapphire was a little bit easier to level for than diamond because I needed 5 less levels. So I wanted to enchant the sapphire sword and use that until I was able to use my diamond one. I got leech 3 as an enchantment on this sword. I also got rampaging, and this was a great find. And also the leeching gives me a lifesteal, which is crazy. I also figured out you can make a paxel, which would be my next tool of choice. I would skip all the other tools and I would just use the paxel from now on. I also enchanted the paxel and then I got a scythe to go as well. This scythe was going to be my weapon of choice until I could use the sapphire one, and then I would transfer to the diamond one. I made some source gem blocks and I wanted to check out the trading system, and source gems and levels are required to get a copper coin, so that was a really bad deal. I then tested out my scythe, and this scythe gave slowness to everything that I hit, which was crazy. A debuff like this can always go a long way. I tried looting up this crazy illager structure, but I got barraged with arrows and with magic. So I went back home and I slept my pain away. On the next day I was exploring again and I wanted to go a little bit further than I had been before. In the distance I spotted that huge tower, but before that I looted this ancient ruined nether portal. Now there was a crazy black orb in this nether portal and I had never seen it before. It is a keystone of oblivion. Pretty much it's like your space disposable trash can teleportation device. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but I decided to leave it in my backpack for now and I would check things out later. I completely forgot to check out the space trash can later, but it's fine, I never use a trash can anyway. I started killing all the illagers one by one, but there were so many of them. The slowness made it really easy to capture them off guard, but I knew that I needed to climb that tower if I wanted to get that loot. I was really scared what was going to be up at the top of this tower, because the normal mobs, the Feranters, were already pretty strong. I got another combat level, and we were starting to look good on our damage. We already had 74% extra bonus damage. After a while, I decided it was time to climb the side of this tower, and my spider trinket made it super easy to get around quickly. When I arrived at the top of the tower, I found the Illager King, and this guy looks really menacing. I figured out that I could mine my way to the chest that he was guarding, and I wanted to see what loot was inside. It had to be something really good, right? And oh my god, look at that. There is enchanted diamond things, golden apples, diamonds, emeralds, enchanted bows. Man, this stuff is good. And then I almost died. Look at that. This guy almost completely one-shot me. I knew it was time to leave. I wasn't gonna stick around and get killed by that Illager King. So I made a waypoint in case I wanted to come back and kill this guy when I was a little bit stronger. And then I checked out the loot that I had gotten. All of these bows were enchanted with low-level enchants, but if I could combine them, it could mean that I get a really strong bow. I spent the rest of the night killing some random mobs trying to get some more enchanted books, because I was still searching for that knowledge of the ages. Then I got blown up by a creeper while I was setting a new waystone, and I found a portal guide. These guys are pretty cool. They allow me to go to the blue skies dimension, which is a really cool dimension which can give you some extra permanent buffs in the form of a certain type of trinket after you kill a boss. I wanted to take this dimension on at some point, but I didn't feel like I was ready just yet, because overworld armor and equipment and tools are much more weaker in that dimension. Back at home, I stored away all of the loot that I had gotten, and I went to bed. After waking up, I found that there was a caster outside of my base, so I made quick work of him, and then I went on a boat trip. I wanted to explore in some more obscure directions that I haven't been in before, and then I found these fish zombies, and these guys actually look pretty funny. They also take a lot of hits to kill. Damn. After mining the spawner, I decided to check out this shipwreck that was outside, and it only had some fish. I found a weird monument with a chest inside and some drowned zombies around it. So, it could be that there was some really good loot inside. But sadly for us, it wasn't. I then found a beached up boat, and these guys were not messing around. They had some type of bleeding arrow on their crossbows, so I wanted to loot the chest and I wanted to dip. Sadly, I got noticed, and there were a ton of skeletons which were also enhanced that were trying to kill me. But not to fear, I had some golden apples on me, and I had a scythe and a shield. That was all I needed. The skeletons started shooting each other, which made it a lot easier for me to kill them, and then I used my efficiency 5 iron shovel to get my gathering experience up. And before I knew it, I was already halfway on the durability. That's why I said putting efficiency 5 on the iron shovel was a bad idea. The next day I was exploring and I wanted to find something really cool. I knew there were some structures that I hadn't found yet, but I couldn't find them today either. I claimed some quests and I figured out what I could all do with some materials. After that, I started scrapping some of the swords that I had found, and I put it on my sapphire sword because we were really close, only 1.5 levels away. I found another library, and this gave me a ton of extra gathering experience. And you already know I'm rocking that Heart of the Earth, and look at that gathering experience go! We got so many levels. There was also another roguelike dungeon nearby, so I decided to hit that up as well. And I got an Angel's Blessing in this. It accelerates you in a certain distance as an active ability, and you are immune to fall and collision damage, 50% chance to deflect incoming projectiles. My projectiles are accelerated greatly, but I am vulnerable to Withering and Void. The Void damage is not a big deal. The Withering damage also not. To have a 50% chance to deflect any incoming projectile is huge. I equipped it and I was immediately starting to go ham. I ran across another named mob, and this guy would leave me scared and shivering in my boots. I set up a little barrier in order to be able to kill him easily, but I was dealing barely any damage. He also got my attack speed really low, which means that I could only deal some hefty damage every few seconds. My bow was also not doing much damage and not giving me any experience. So I decided that there was only one thing left to do, and that was beat him to death. It took so long to kill him. But after he was defeated, I got some pretty cool stuff. I got a wood cleaver of Lights of Latent Magic, which had deep wounds and pain cycle. I also got a really cool spear that deals damage to myself, which amplifies the damage I deal to another mob. I think this is a pretty cool mechanic. If you combine this with a leech or with a lifesteal, that weapon could become really overpowered. After mining the spawners, I advanced deeper into the roguelike dungeon, and things were starting to look pretty scary. I arrived at the hellish floor, and these mobs were starting to become really strong. They had diamond gear, and they were shooting me from all over the place. Poisoning me, withering me, giving me slowness and weakness and bleeding. It was a wild ride. But I knew that the loot inside this layer was really worth it. The wither skeletons were my biggest enemy, as I was now vulnerable to withering. I drank another life-saving potion because I wanted to make this work. We had also already reached level 40, so I was now using the sapphire sword with leech, and things were starting to look good. My armor was taking a lot of damage, but that didn't matter to me. I was determined to get the biggest loot that was possible in this place, because you can get some really strong enchanted books and enchanted gear. All my armor decided to break down, so I knew it was time to leave this place. I didn't have any spares, so I had to return home. I stored away all of the stuff, and it had been a really good day of grinding. I repaired my shield and my tools, as well as I tried to repair some of my armor, but I lost a lot of levels in the process, sadly. Next, I decided to try out how the salvaging system works. Pretty much you take a smithing table, an item that can be salvaged, and you shift right click on the smithing table. Certain items have a much higher chance to be salvaged into their lower forms, and then it was time to create a spawning device. This would summon the Dame Fortuna, and it was actually pretty cheap to craft. Only 1 diamond, 4 gold, and some netherrack, and it gave me some quests. You could also make some pretty cool gear with this thing. So I spawned it, and it could go through walls. I also didn't know why I spawned it inside of my base, but hey, we're here now, so I better make the most of it. And this thing started shooting all kinds of random magic at me, so I wanted to take this fight outside. Luckily, my shield could block the magic, and this guy was not knowing what he was messing with. I took out the bow and I started shooting him down, and this guy had a lot of health. He had 400 health, so I knew I had to get in close and use my sword to chip away at his health, and this was doing some real damage. Luckily, I still had the extra hearts from my life-saving potion, and I was able to just go in. I raised my combat level by 1 during the fight, and then some weird snappy thingies decided to show up, which was really cool. I didn't know if it was my sapphire sword or the guy, and after I killed him, I got the achievement of Jackpot. He dropped some enchanted books and a fortune device? I wasn't sure what he dropped, but I realized quickly that I could make an ace of iron with it, which sometimes negates incoming damage, which was huge. This was a huge relic. I immediately equipped it and we were starting to look really good. I also achieved my first 200 total levels. After achieving my first 200 levels, it was time to mess around a little bit with the settings. So I was messing around with the settings of the MMORPG mod. You can fine-tune this menu as much as you like, which was really cool. After that, I hit one of the illager structures. This place was absolutely massive. There were enchanted illagers all over. The Vindicators had 100 health and a lot of armor, so I wanted to skip this place just for the time being, because I knew I was gonna get one shot. I then found an Illusioner, and these guys are real trouble. They can split up in different clones that you cannot hit, so you have to kill the main one. After a little bit of exploration, I found a boss, the Ferocious Rotnod. And I was not dealing with that guy, because I saw from other people playing this mod pack that he can pretty much one-shot you, and I was not gonna have that. During the nighttime, I was trying to enhance my endurance level a little bit more, but my bone armor was keeping me from gaining levels. I also got a new artifact, which is, well, a new trinket, which is a golden swatter, and it one-hit kills silverfish, which is pretty cool. After that, I hit the dungeons. I needed to get a bunch of enchanted books and a lot more gear. I also wanted to increase my levels so I could get more trinket slots and I could start enchanting. My sapphire sword was putting in work and I got a pretty flower. After killing a bunch of zombies and almost getting blown to smithereens, I delved deeper into the dungeon. As you go deeper into these dungeons, the loot also starts to get better, which is a really good thing. I got a new trinket slot and we were back to level 1. Now I equipped the trinket Creepo before I found this really cool door. I really wanted to take this door home with me, but I couldn't mine it, sadly. After that, I found a new type of dungeon and I got a Butcher's Cleaver trinket, which was really cool. I also leveled up my archery a little bit, and then I found Elton. I found Elton John. Hey guys, look at this. He had a ton of health, but I was able to chip away quickly at this huge health bar. After killing him, I got some pretty cool loot. I got some new kicks, and then I was checking out the nether portal mechanics. So in this mod pack, the nether portal doesn't work the same. You need to find a generated nether portal, which holds some type of liquid that you can pick up with a bucket. And when you are inside the nether, you have to take gold blocks with you in order to activate a beacon that gets you back home. From day 23 to day 25, I was gathering up as much experience and loot as possible in the dungeons, and I just steamrolled everything. I found a couple new artifacts, I found some cool enchanted books, and as you can see, sometimes I had to head home because it was getting a little too gnarly. Back at home, I also started claiming some quests and I found out I can get spawn eggs for silver coins, which means that I can pretty much build farms, animal farms. I also leveled up my archery until level 17 and I was able to fly. Yeah, apparently when you get some type of scroll, you can enable flight, which allowed me to go to this illager place, and I thought this place was going to be stacked with loot, and it is. It holds a lot of iron and gold, a lot of enchanted stuff, and so many emeralds. Look at that. I got another Totem of Undying, and I thought this was the moment to start killing the dragon outside of my base. And oh boy, I could not have been more wrong. I was able to put in some damage and then all of my armor broke and I almost died. I was starting to feel the pressure from this dragon. I had 2 Totems of Undying, so I was pretty stacked, but I didn't want to risk it for the biscuit. I found another named mob and I wanted to get his loot. I was aiming for that ancient loot, man. And sadly I didn't get it. I did get some latent magic ones, and then I found another named mob. And this one held a uncommon chestplate, and then it was back to the dragon. I wanted to kill this thing, so I was going ham and I thought I could really get it, and oh my god, it absolutely shredded my health bar. My 2 Totems of Undying also broke and I was feeling the pressure. This was really close. I had 2.5 hearts remaining. If I dropped below half a heart, I would die. The world would be over. I went home and I had to go to bed. it was going to take me at least 8 nights until I had recovered all of my health. It's even gonna be longer, it's like 12 nights. Oh boy. I was starting to get really scared by that dragon, because if it raids me while I'm sleeping and it destroys my base, I am done. The next day I did some villager trading, which also unlocked the piggy trinket. Now the reason why I'm doing the villager trading is because I had too many emeralds, I needed a bunch of wood, and trading actually gives you a ton of experience. I was also looking for a librarian who could allow me to get some really powerful books, but he didn't have any of those trades. So the next item on the list was finding, or making rather said, some pre-generated structure. I did some enchanting and I got protection 4 on my boots, and I got projectile protection 4 on the leggings. I also figured out that I needed to make smooth stone, a bunch of logs, I needed to make some lanterns in order to get a warehouse or a house. Now, soft stone is made by combining 4 stone, and I was looking at the diamond hammer before the dragon attacked my base. This was one of the moments in this series where my heart absolutely stopped. I was getting really scared. I went outside and I almost died again. So it's really nice. When I'm exploring, I almost get killed, and when I'm at home, there's a dragon trying to kill me. I am absolutely stressing right now. There is literally nothing I can do. I cannot go outside. I cannot go in my base. I need to get out of here. Like, that's the only option I have. I need to relocate my base somewhere where there aren't dragons. And, oh man, I'm stressing right now. Because my base was just set up. We were just starting to thrive. So I finally made 2 houses. I got the 3rd house from my chest, and I made a medium house. Now, the next thing I needed to do was find a suitable location, and I had this village which had a very open space right next to it. So I thought, this is perfect. I'll make an earthen home that goes underneath the ground, so I'm safe from all dangers above ground, and then I can just rebuild my base. Make a storage facility, make an auto smelter, I have a mine downstairs, I can set up the nether portal, I can set up a library, an enchanting room, it's all going to be okay. So I bought a waystone, and I officially made this place my house. Well, house number 2. So I spent day 27 to 30 moving all the stuff from one base to another base. I made a ton of extra backpacks, and then it was just a matter of rinse and repeat, put stuff from my storage system into my backpacks and then move it to the other base. After filling up all the backpacks, I made my first trip to the new base. I set up the storage facility in order to have my simple storage, because man, it is such a luxury. I love playing mod packs with the simple storage mod now. Shout out to that one guy from Fantasy Realm that told me about it, because I was a doofus back then. And after moving all of my stuff, I was finally going to have some peace of mind. I could gather my thoughts, I could just explore, enjoy the mod pack without being afraid of dying every 5 seconds. I set up the auto smeltery and I hooked it up to my storage system, as well as I put some extra import nodes right next to it so I could place my backpacks and it would just suck up all the items. After sleeping, I started making my enchanting room. Day 31 started off great. I had a full bookshelf, which allowed me to do some level 30 enchants. I accidentally made way too much golden shovels, which I enchanted all of them. I thought this was going to be the big brain play to go and mine some sand with efficiency 1 gold shovels, because you can instant break them. But as you will probably know, the amount of levels you need is much more than the amount of shovels that I could possibly make an enchant. I would have to have like an unbreaking shovel or something, like an ancient shovel with unbreaking and then put efficiency 5 on it. I think that could work. Anyway, I found this wandering trader and I got a mage companion from him. So I have a lantern in my active slots that I can activate, and it summons a mage. After having these mages float around a little bit and admiring them, I started mining the sand. Now, with efficiency 1, the sand does instant break, so that is pretty good. I do get a bit of experience, but I burned through the shovels quite fast actually, so it was a good idea on paper until I actually did it. After that sad adventure of that shoveling, I found a harpy with a shield that was enchanted. I also got raided by some stymphalian birds, which really rained down hell upon me. And as you can see in the top left corner, we are getting pretty close to level 50 combat. I almost died again, and then it was enough for me, and I was back home. Because we only had 1.5 hearts remaining, which is, of course, really nice. So I slept, and I regained my health. The day after, a couple days after that, I decided to hit the mines, and I wanted to get, well, just spend my days mining, gather up some more materials, get some extra levels from the mining, before I could finally regain all of my health. Because, yeah, let's not forget, if I die, the world gets deleted, so I really don't want that to happen. I then finally made a clock, which made it easy to track time when I was downstairs in the mines. And I expanded my storage facility because for some reason, this mod pack gives you so much loot that it is impossible to just store it all away. I already had to expand it twice, and we're gonna have to keep expanding it. I really wish you could hook up some like giant chests, like obsidian chests or glass chests, you know, from like the RLCRAFT and stuff. I really wish you could hook those type of chests up to the storage system. That would be really cool. After expanding, I figured out there's a class system, and I really wish I had known this back when I started. So you can pretty much start out with some basic materials. You can then exchange levels for a mark. That mark you can exchange for class-specific gear, which is really cool. It adds like another RPG element. I also then figured out you could upgrade your backpacks to make them bigger, which is also something I didn't know. But it's really cool, because you can also put upgrades in your backpack. And one of the upgrades that I would be focusing on getting is the magnet upgrade, which pretty much items you pick up will be automatically put in your backpack, which is insane. There's another backpack upgrade that I was interested in, but I kind of forgot later on in the series, and that is the auto-feeding upgrade. Pretty much if you have food in your backpack, your character will automatically eat when you get hungry. And then I found my first nether portal. There was a named mob above the nether portal, so I first wanted to take him on, and then I was going to claim my bucket of dimensional fluid. The named mob was nowhere to be found, which was kinda scary. So after a little bit of digging, I found him in a cave nearby. I mean, say what you want, but that guy has a sword and will probably one-shot me, so I'm gonna play it safe and I'm gonna snipe him from afar. Which was the right thing to do. Before you all go on saying I'm a pussy, this is the right thing to do. I don't want to delete my world. This is the first mod pack that I got my first world, and we're still playing in it. I did get a really cool helmet that had extra armor as well, but I needed level 40 endurance to wear it, of course. I unlocked a lot of new trinkets, and I was going to see which setup would be the best for my trinket usage. I then got one of the coolest trinkets you can get, the luck coin. Now, the luck coin is a trinket that will permanently give you a luck effect, which is huge. It makes loot better, drop tables better, it is insane. I then figured out that there is an altar of the sea. Now, an altar of the sea, pretty much what it does is you put 4 items or enchanted books into the altar. You spend a ton of levels that it automatically absorbs from you, and then it will upgrade whatever enchantments are on the 4 items and combine them into one book. Which seemed on paper like an insane thing to build, which is why I really wanted it. I then found a sea structure with a loot chest, and it had an unholy grail. Now, the instructions on this grill are, whatever you do, do not drink from this. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But something inside of me really wanted to see what would happen. I mean, if it was a damaging effect that we could, abuse it for our endurance leveling, I mean, I wouldn't mind that. Later on, I hit one of those vessels that were out in the sea, and I got visited by a goblin trader. And these guys usually have pretty good trades, but this guy was absolute ass. He just had some silver coins, some copper coins, some gunpowder, and some upgrading of enchantments. Oh, that was a pretty good trade. He had randomite ore, which increases my mining and gathering by a shitload. So I placed down all of these randomite ores, and look at my gathering. It is at 2930 right now. And we're still mining, 2930, 2950, 2960. We're still going. Do we get the level up? Do we get the level up? Do we get the level up? Let's go! We got it! After that, I did some target practice on a Cyclops outside, which drastically increased my archery level. And then I went to bed. Day 36 had finally broken in. I made a name tag for the Goblin Trader, and yeah, I think that fits pretty well, actually. Yeah, please don't sue me, Asmongold. After that, I found another aquamarine structure, and I thought I was gonna hit it big. Well, not really, but yeah. This place was swarmed with drowned mobs, and I had the feeling one of them had a trident, but I wasn't able to locate him because I still really wanted that trident. And I got some amphibian boots. This is a big find. Amphibian boots are insane. I then figured out you could do infusion enchanting on bookshelves to make them even more powerful. Problem being, you need 45 levels to infuse a bookshelf. And you need a ton of materials. You need prismarine bricks, you need a pufferfish, you need a potion, and then you need to infuse it. I hit up another ruined nether portal, and it had some enchanted stuff and wither roses. Wither roses were pretty cool, because I could make a certain type of farm with it, but I absolutely forgot about it. Like, a ton of stuff in this mod pack. I hit up another tome tower, and lo and behold, we got a reinforced netherite chestplate of latent magic of tenacity, and it is ancient with extra armor toughness. Ooh! This thing is nasty. This thing is absolutely nasty. I didn't need endurance level 60 for that, so we were a little over halfway there. Asmongold was chilling in my base, and we started to finally trade a little bit more. I then unlocked an ice shard trinket by sniping something from really far. And there was another dummy for practice. And another practice. I mean, archery is a pretty big skill. I then scrapped a ton of bows and put it on my nocturnal bow that I got from that one named mob. Now, I finally found a really good bow that I wanted to stack up completely. And then it was time for another flying ship. I had gotten so much more powerful, I was wielding diamond swords, and I had a really good bow, so I felt confident that I could take on this dungeon easily. I mean, it was still really scary because these guys set you on fire and have magma slimes that spawn after they die. But all in all, I gotta say it went pretty well. We were able to just take on this dungeon in the normal way, without having to block myself off and everything. So that was nice. I got some extra experience in endurance and in archery, and then an army spawned. If you look in the chat, an undead army spawned, which means that there is a ton of undead that are trying to kill me outside. So, what is the best way to deal with this? If there is an army, I'll say which army. Man, that sounded really cringe. Anyway, I took on the whole army and it was going to be really easy because these were just some skeletons and zombies. I mean, nothing could go wrong, right? Well, a Cyclops joined and it started to get a little bit hairy because there were way too many mobs. I summoned my mage and we were fighting the good fight. We were going ham. After defeating all the mobs, the Cyclops destroyed pretty much all the trees in the near vicinity, and I got a loot bag, an undead army loot bag. Now, I was really curious to see what was going to be inside of this loot bag. So when I got back home, I first slept away all the tiredness, and then it was time to open the loot bag. And I got some flesh, some bones, some cloth, emeralds, and that was pretty much it. So nothing too crazy. I also made some sticky pistons in order to make the pickup upgrade for my backpack, which allowed me to make a backpack pick up all the items that I pick up, which was really, really useful. Unless you break your base, then it's not really useful. I also spent some time exploring the oceans. I was still really scared because I could get attacked by some random sea serpents, but I had my magic mirror and I was feeling pretty okay. There's also a title system in this mod pack. As you can see, I just gave myself a new title. And I found a pyramid, which held some gold and a lava trap. Really neat. I broke in from the top because usually at the top that's where the sarcophagus is, and I wanted to see what loot I could get. And oh boy, I found the Notch Apple. That is big stuff. That is really big stuff. Back at home, Asmongold was still chilling, and I went to bed. Day 39 was upon us. On day 39, I did some basic exploration in the early morning. I then went for a little swim because I had to increase my swimming level to 5 in order to use the amphibian boots. And I found some extra prismarine shards. Very nice. I then got seduced by a siren who wanted none of the smoke because I slashed her down with my diamond sword. And I looted up another structure. This was a water pyramid. Now, in the meantime, I had gotten a trinket which gives me infinite water breathing, which is really good. I also got my first spell book, I think, Bailey's Bovine Rocket. And I finally made the Sea Altar, which would allow me to get more enchanted books and stronger ones. I went to bed, and on day 40, I found another tome tower. This was big. I could hit it big. Ah, man, can't have shit in this mod pack. I did find a python, however. Now, this was in a really cool biome that was enormous. These mountains were enormous. And I wasn't sure if the python was something that's really strong or not, but I decided to first bow it down before I would fight it head on. I also figured out that there's a lot of those vines, which I really needed. Then I made the Sea Altar. And after placing it down, I gathered up 4 enchanted bows. I placed them all in the respective corners. And it sucked away all of my levels. And apparently it needs a lot more than 34 levels in order to start making the new enchanted book. Which was kind of a bummer. I think that is a really bad mechanic, because it takes a ton of experience. And then I got ambushed by a sea serpent, which I wanted none of, so I teleported back home. And that was enough scary stuff for me. I was going to round off the day, just store away my stuff, and go to bed. After going to bed, it was finally time for day 41. And I was really excited. I started to understand the shop system a lot more, which allowed me to make some interesting trades. Using copper, I got a ton of loot boxes. As you can see here, I just claimed all of them. Sadly, there is no claim all button, which, well, made me have to do this process one by one. And these loot crates can hold a various amount of items, as well as sometimes not open, apparently. I did get a cool shulker helmet from this one, which levitates me on command, which I thought was pretty cool. I then put some extra fuel into my furnaces, and I put some levels in the altar. After that, it was time for some dungeoneering, and I found a dungeon which hyper spawned these skeletons, which allowed for some really great experience farming. And I also got some additional monster coins, which is really cool. These monster coins hold some real great value in the shop. I got a ton of enchanted stuff from these mobs. Apparently I had broken all of my anvils, so I quickly had to make some extra. It had been enough grinding for today. I leveled up a lot in combat and endurance, and I went to bed. What is better than flying with like a sunrise? Like, this looks really cool. I was also scouting for some underwater structures, and I did find an ocean temple, which is really good. This holds the Guardian boss, and I was interested to see what items this boss holds in this mod pack. So I spent a countless amount of time looking for this dude, and eventually I found him. He had a ton of health. The Elder Guardian had 200 health, and he did a ton of damage. This guy hit like an absolute truck. So I cheesed him by bowing him down underwater, and I claimed all of his stuff. I also leveled up my archery, which was pretty cool. After claiming the loot bag, I got a couple of different items. I got some shiny scales, a water bottle, some fish, and some different types of prismarine. I put the remaining levels into my altar, and I stored away all my stuff. During the day, I also found another ruined nether portal, and a bunch of TNT. This was located at one of those illager mines, and I gotta say, this outstanding acid looks pretty cool. It has Slayer 4 and Sage's Blessing 4, which are some really strong enchantments. Sadly, it's a wooden sword. I was exploring the illager mines until I noticed that these guys were starting to come in from everywhere. So I wanted to make a quick escape, because I was not gonna deal with that. I also got around to finding another king. Now, as you remember, this place holds an insane amount of enchanted loot and diamonds. I wanted to explore the insides as well, and I used my mage in order to gun them down, because I wasn't gonna do the dirty work. Later I fell down and I had to do the dirty work. Problem being that these guys do actually hit pretty hard. Even though I'm in full iron enchanted armor, these guys are no joke. The cool thing being that on these layers there are pretty much brewing aisles, and they have potions and a ton of brewing materials. I then went up a floor and there was an enchantment table and a ton of chests. But these mobs that get spawned deal a crazy amount of damage. There is also this bleeding effect and I was dying rapidly. I had to get out of this place. I was on half a heart and I was not gonna lose the other hearts that I have. So I went home, I ate up, I slept up, and I wanted to explore the King's Tower later on, when I was a little bit stronger. I also noticed that my book was finally ready, and I got, well, let's just chuck that away and never think about that again. I thought if I put some stronger enchantments in, then I might get a better outcome. So I put my strong sapphire sword in with some other diamond enchanted swords. Now I was hoping that this would do the trick and I could claim an insane book later on. Later on a beach, I found a sea serpent, and this guy was hungry for my blood. He jumped up and got onto the land, and I was starting to panic. This guy was no joke. He deals a ton of damage. He was a pretty chunky boy. So I bowed him down because the sea serpent on land is pretty useless, and I actually got an achievement. See? Not a problem. We got our first sea serpent kill, which was awesome. I cannot use the Tide Guardian armor set yet because I think I need endurance 45 for it, which I am still quite a ways off. I also farmed up another library, giving me a ton of gathering and woodcutting experience, which was really nice. And then I explored a spider dungeon. This place seemed pretty scary, I'm not gonna lie, but there was a named mob and I was able to farm off some good archery experience. And this guy was a menace. Fred the Doominator, 265 health and dual wielding a sword and a sickle. Now that guy looked nasty. He dropped some pretty cool gear though. I got a Fred's ironclad rusty cap, which was actually a lot stronger than my helmet. Problem being that I didn't have any mending, so I didn't want to break the helmet just yet. I also found a pretty big structure. I thought this was like some type of dungeon, and there were piglins in mushroom gear, which I wasn't sure what to think about it, but they dealt a ton of damage. But it was no problem for me, because I had my spider boots and I was able to climb everything. After looting up that mushroom dungeon, I decided to hit a crypt in order to farm some extra combat experience. And then I got attacked by a dragon. And that was a scary situation. I didn't even know the dragon was out there until it started burning the whole crypt down. I also claimed a couple of extra quests and I raised my endurance levels. And we hit a big milestone. We hit endurance 40, which unlocked a ton of new stuff for me. I also decided to try and drink some of those potions that are harmful in order to raise my maximum endurance level, but that didn't really do much. So the next item on the list was opening the Pearl Gates. Now with mob drops and an Ender Pearl, you can make a gate that spawns a specific type of mob. The mobs come in waves, and after 5 waves you get a total loot bonus based on the mob type. So for example, from the spider portal, I would get a ton of string and spider eyes at the end when the gate is finally closed. As you can see here, after each wave you also claim some of the materials, and the mobs do get really strong with each wave. As you can see, these spiders have 74 health. That's pretty strong. There was also an invisible spider, which was quite scary. I got another endurance level, so it was really worth it, and the spider gate was cleared. Look at all that fancy loot and experience. After that juicy adventure, I had to rest up a little bit. Before diving straight into the next day, I claimed a ton of quests and I opened another gate, this time a zombie gate. After that, I also decided to take on a skeleton gate, but this gate was a little bit more difficult. I also claimed a really cool loot crate, which gave me a midnight robe. It gives me 15% bonus movement speed in the night and it hides me when I'm sneaking when it's dark, so that is really cool. I also wanted to get into the runic items because these would allow me to repair my artifacts. I also was figuring out what I could do with the heart of the earth, and you could upgrade it into some pretty cool stuff. The recipes were quite expensive, but I was able to make a charm of the treasure hunter before my whole screen glitched out and showed every single artifact that is in my possession. I decided to take off the hasty enigmatic amulet and replace it with the treasure hunter brooch. Then I drank the unholy grail, and my god, look at those effects. It is definitely unholy. I also figured out that there is a ton of different bookshelves you can make. Each bookshelf adds a new bonus effect, or would increase or decrease your Eterna and your other stats, allowing you to put different enchantments onto your stuff. I then enhanced my trident with a Wrath 5, and I wanted to see if I could submit my mark for my class quest. But I needed to submit the levels, and then I could claim the mark. After claiming the mark and turning it in, you can get class-specific gear and potions, which is really cool. After my class adventure, I went to bed, and when I woke up, I was feeling fresh and ready to take on the next day. During this day, I placed down my bucket, or I tried to, but apparently it needs to be placed down at the bottom layer, like at bedrock level. Then I could finally go to the nether. So I made a small incision into my wall, and I placed down the bucket of dimensional fluid. After sitting in this pool chilling in my jacuzzi, I went to the nether. Hell's gates had opened. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this place just yet, but I was feeling pretty confident. I still had my magic mirror in case everything would go wrong. The mobs in this place look pretty cool, and the loot you get from these dungeons is nice. Look at this. A lot of enchantments, a lot of enchanted gear, and some extra basic loot. I claimed some basalt because in my previous adventures I had real trouble with finding a basalt biome, but this time I found it pretty much instantly. After a little bit of exploring, I went home and I started making all of the artifact repairing stuff. I also claimed another loot crate, and this gave me a potion of life, which is really good. I then figured out I could make some pretty cool pre-generated structures by crafting. The recipes were incredibly expensive, however. So, without further ado, I got started on making all of the stuff, and I was able to make 5 of the 9 pieces or 8 pieces of the lanterns. I got some extra pieces of lantern, and I was finally able to make 1 coil. Now I needed to have double the materials because I needed 2 coils in order to make my warehouse. So the first things first, I made an ender chest because that can be used in other dimensions. And I started making compressed stone. Now compressed stone is pretty expensive. After feeling a little bit down because of the expensiveness, I went to sleep, and the next day I opened another gate. I had this smart idea of making a type of mob farm that could increase my endurance levels by having the gates spawn them on top of me. But it wasn't really that smart of an idea because I forgot that my armor will take a ton of damage. So by the time I was done farming my endurance levels, all of my armor had practically broken. Literally all of it. My chestplate was the only piece remaining. My endurance level was up pretty high though. We were already at 44. And that's when I figured out if you don't clear a gate fast enough, the gate will get destroyed. It was an interesting experience. I learned a lot of new stuff today about the gates and about the experience system. I placed my backpacks with loot into my extractors, and I donned on some new iron gear. I also started making some fences because I wanted to get a passive mob farm. Because I had those 2 sheep eggs remaining, I figured out that if I could make a sheep farm, I would have infinite wool. So I cleared out an area, and I started placing my fence posts down. After filling in the holes that were left from some destruction, I had finally secured a spot for my sheep to live in peace. Then it was time to introduce my 2 new additions to the base. I lit up the place around my sheep farm because I did not want the mobs to get blown up. And then it was enough. Day 50 had broken upon us. I actually did some farming. Yeah, you saw that right, I did some farming. And I bone mealed the hell out of it. Because I wanted to see if farming would work with bone meal, but that didn't seem to be the case. I then let my 2 sheep do the birds and the bees. And there was a small sheep now. which is, yeah, bro just spawned in. I also upgraded my backpacks to the gold level, and I upgraded 2 of them to diamond. Then I found another spider dungeon. Now, these places are pretty annoying because everything poisons you and everything slows you. But I thought it was going to be worth it if I could find some real cool loot. Using my trident, I was able to take down the little guys really easily because that Wrath 5 was doing work. There was something that pretty much hit my whole hitbox of health, and I wasn't sure what it was, but I was so glad I had my magic mirror. I also got like this type of buried treasure map, but I was having some real trouble finding it. It took me all the way until nighttime for me to find this buried treasure. And there it was. The buried treasure. And ooh, look at that, a heart of the sea. I also got some random materials, but the heart of the sea was the biggest find I would have. Sunrise came and day 51 broke in. I also grabbed some wheat in order to breed my sheep again, but they were not willing to take the wheat, so no extra sheep were made this day. I then kind of forgot I had a bad omen effect, and a raid started right next to my base. This was the start of an era of war, because these raids are no joke. They start out pretty okay, but everybody has gear, has different armors, has weaponry, and even later you'll see that a king joins the battle. This golem took an absolute beating before he was finally put to rest, and everything was starting to get crowded. Different types of mobs that I'd never seen spawned. There was also this big rhino who was just charging at me every once in a while. It was starting to look hairy. I had the feeling I was gonna lose my place. This squall golem took an absolute lifetime to kill, and then I found that there was a king who was trapped in some blocks. I was really happy that this king did not make his way out of this hole, because otherwise I would have been in big trouble. But for now, my mate shot him down and I stabbed him to death, and the king had been slain. But that did not mark the end of this raid just yet. Their king was down and they were feeling more ferocious than ever. The mobs started spawning in different types of goons, and the battle kept going. Day and night I had already fought, and even some named mobs joined the battle, which almost killed me. It was not looking too good. The next day I even unlocked some new weapons because my archery level had gone up so much. And that's when disaster absolutely struck. The raid was going on and an undead army happened to spawn as well. This was getting way too crazy for me. There were 2 different armies trying to kill me and take away my home. But I was having none of it. I was going to fight back until the very last moment. I had donned myself with full diamond armor and I was going hard. Everything was fighting each other. Mobs were starting to kill each other off, my endurance went up another level, and these Vexes had shields and weaponry as well. As if things could not get worse, there was another named mob right outside of my base. Luckily, I could take him down very easily because he was really slow, but that didn't mean that the fight was over. Sunrise came on the 3rd day of war, and I was still going at it. These guys were going to give me no rest, and so I battled on for ages. Finally, after a long fought battle, I had ended up victorious. I slept all the pain from the war away, and all my armor was broken. I had to take a moment and just relax for a while. I wanted to see if I could make some new structures because that sounded like a real good time. I also hit up a dungeon in order to just get some extra materials, and later on I found a cool structure. When I arrived at this structure, I got the notification we lived together. So I thought that was pretty fun. I did get bowed down quite a lot and my armor was really starting to hurt, but I had a good feeling about the loot that was going to be in this place. I thought it was going to be worth it. And when I finally slayed all the mobs, I realized that it was actually really worth it. I got some real cool stuff, some diamond enchanted tools and armor, a couple of backpacks, enchanted tomes with experience. Yeah, it was overall a really good haul. I decided to take on the lower floors of the dungeon as well, because they would have some more basic materials that I would need constantly. My Violet Angel's Blessing was acting up because sometimes I did get shot with arrows. And in the meantime, I found a hydrant. Now, these things are pretty strong, and I heard only fire works against them. But seeing as I don't have any fire weapons or enchantments, that wasn't really an option. The reason being that this thing is so hard to kill is the lower health it has, the bigger the regeneration. And it shredded absolutely through my armor. I almost killed him, but his regeneration was just too strong. I always got so close, but before I could get him, my armor completely broke down, so his damage was too much. I then swam around a little bit, trying to claim some of the random loot that was in this underwater dungeon. And I found a really cool pre-generated structure. Look at this. It was just in the side of the underwater mountain. Pretty cool, huh? I then also found some really cool thing. A hearted golem. And I realized I could mine this structure in order to make my aquatic bookshelves. So, for the next couple of good minutes, I mined everything I could. I tried to mine as many of the blocks as possible so I would never have to go sea mining again. And then I returned to the befamed King's Tower. I wanted to claim the loot that was in this place. I was going to get paid or I was going to die. That were the only two options. So after climbing the wall, I broke inside and I bowed down the king. I also placed my mage down in order for him to deal some extra damage. So I gave him a slight punch and he got activated. When he saw the king, he started going ham. But he got immediately one-shot by the king. So the next item on the list was putting a waystone down, getting a ton of arrows, going back to the king's base, and just snipe him down. Cheese. The cheese strats, boys. Although it is a bit cheap to kill this guy like this, it is totally worth it. And then I claimed all of the loot that was inside. If you don't know, in this mod pack, there is a certain type of enchanted bookshelf that is called an enchantment library. If I disenchant all of these books, I can add all the enchantments into my library, and that way I don't have to combine books anymore and I can just make level 5 enchants from all the smaller enchants that I've found. So that was one of the things I really wanted to work towards during this series, but it would require a lot of levels. I think in total it requires 4 infused hell shelves, which means I have to have 4 times 45 levels to infuse the bookshelves. In the meantime, I upgraded my bookshelves to those aquatic ones, the sea shelves, and I started replacing them in my enchanting table room. And I gotta say, they look pretty cool. They look pretty cool. I also got an enchantment that is Fortune 2, but sadly I did not have the levels for it. So firstly I made a diamond scythe because I think these things look really sick, and then I started making my mob farm. There was something about mob farms that I've always liked, and in this mod pack, raising my level with a mob grinder would be insanely good. I've never been good at making these, but I've always tried. And if you think about the portals, the mob portals, I thought I could put a mob portal inside of this in each corner, and it would just keep pouring out enemies. So that's why I placed water in all corners of this place, so I could just farm the mobs that way. During the night, I also put a mending enchantment on my bow, and I wanted to increase the durability of it. So I went around holding my bow in my offhand and killing a ton of mobs. This scythe was really powerful. I also found an ElAbro encampment, and I knew these places have a ton of emeralds. So that was going to be a really nice haul. Emeralds, enchantment bottles, hopefully some cool enchanted gear. Things were starting to get pretty hairy really quickly though, because as soon as I entered the building, all these guys started pouring in. So I had to make quick work of them in order to be able to make my escape. Now, this place was absolutely filled with loot, so I didn't want to leave empty-handed after I found that real big stash of experience bottles and emeralds. My armor was taking an absolute beating, and in this building, I got kinda scared. There were illagers everywhere on the bottom floor. They had special arrows, and I got down to a lot of hearts. They chipped away at my health really badly. But nonetheless, I secured the loot, and I used all of the experience bottles. Just look at all that juicy experience. My goodness. I also made a stone cutting table, and I was able to turn my emeralds into rough emeralds. With these rough emeralds, I would be able to create a certain emerald type that would allow me to make armor with it, which was really cool. So I crafted stacks upon these rough cut emeralds, and I put them together to make the emeraldite shards. Now with the emeraldite shards, I could also make an emerald apple. Now these apples are like the god apples, but they're craftable. Later that day, I also did some trading with some villagers, and I spent a good amount of time looking for ender pearls because I wanted to make more of those gates that could allow me to kill the mobs and get their loot. So I kept trading, but nothing really happened. Later while trading, I decided to check a little bit more upon the quest system, and I secured myself 4 ender pearls. So I was able to make a couple of more gates, and I was ready to go. I didn't think about making an enderman gate, sadly, but I first wanted to try out my mob farm and see how efficient it was. So I placed a gate inside, made my way outside, and then I sat myself on the farmer's base. And this was working pretty efficiently. The mobs couldn't see me, and I could just whack away at them. So these were gonna be easy monster coins and easy mob drops. They also give quite a bit of experience, which was really nice. Later I decided to also increase the repairing of my bow, because my bow was starting to get a little bit low. So after another gate, I was able to fully repair my bow, which was awesome. And in the later stages of these gates, as you can see, the mobs start to become really strong. And that's when an undead army also happened to come around. But that didn't stop me from farming these zombies because I was putting in some good work. And as you can see, they take a ton of hits. Back in my base, I was sorting around my special backpack. In this backpack, I was going to keep all of the good enchantments that I wanted to put on my final gear. I slept, and then I explored a little bit more into the world, and I took on some structures that were not that hostile. Now, I didn't notice it yet, but these things spawn a ton of silverfish, and they actually deal quite a bit of damage, which surprised me because I was in full iron armor. So I just bowed down all of the silverfish, and that's when I found a tier 5 lightning dragon. So I pulled out the bow, and I was ready to kill him. Or at least I thought I was ready to kill him, but I definitely was not ready yet. So I made a note on my map saying that there was a tier 5 dragon, and then I explored the mountains a little bit more. I did find a giant floating ship that had a lot of shimmers going on, as well as another tome tower. So after I hit up the tome tower, I wanted to see what was up with this sky base, because I knew there had to be some good loot in here. But with good loot comes great danger, and I did really notice it when I was fighting these mobs. I mean, look at this place. It is absolutely menacing. After wiggling my way around this base, I was finally able to open one of the chests, and I got a Keystone of Oblivion, which pretty much acts like a spatial trash can, you could say. I also expanded my base storage system, and I was checking out all the buffs of the Emerald Apple, because I still wanted to kill a couple of dragons, and I was hoping these apples would allow me to do so. So I went back to my original base, and I was going to try to slay my first dragon. So the battle was on. I had my bow, and I knew I could take this guy down, because the Emerald Apple gave me a ton of regeneration and resistance. I leveled up my archery, but I was feeling the pressure of this dragon. I had to drink another life-saving potion, because I wanted to go ham. My armor started breaking, and I only had 2 pieces remaining. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to take down this dragon, but after a while, I finally did so, and I unlocked a new skill called Dragon Slaying. So you have to kill dragons in order to raise this skill, and to my surprise, the dragon weapons and armory require you to have a certain dragon slaying skill. So I looted up all of the blood from this dragon, as well as its scales and its bones, and my first dragon stuff was in. I also raided an illager mansion, which gave me a lot of black wool, and then I farmed up a little bit more archery experience. Because if I was gonna slay dragons, a good archery level was going to be the way to go. After farming up a ton of archery experience, I was ready to move on to the next thing. And the next thing being that I was going to explore a little bit more. I also found this really cool ravine, which had a ton of dungeons inside, which was really awesome. I also found another named mob, and this guy was enhanced, so he was a real danger to me. He had 30 armor points and an astonishing 900 health. And he gave me a pretty cool greaves. These were enchanted and they were enhanced with some rare affixes. So it had Sage's Blessing and all that other good stuff. I also got another item which makes me faster when it's dark, and you can just see me zip around the map like this. It was awesome. It's always cool when you get something that gives you extra bonus movement speed. I mean, look at me just zooming past all the mobs. And then I found another named mob. Now, I thought I was going to be able to get some easy gear from this guy, but there was something that kept on blinding me, which was kind of scary. I think it was this guy, this Forgotten. After killing the Forgotten, I was ready to claim my new named mob. So when I finally found him, it appeared Nora dropped some good stuff. I got some steel shoes of tenacity, which give me extra health and some extra damage. The armor on it is quite bad, however, but it is a cool item to have. Later, I found this guy with this magical clothing and a bow that shoots fire arrows. Now, I was a little bit scared because Jimmy was dealing some real damage, and he gave me a ton of debuffs. I mean, just look at how much damage he's dealing. So, I really had to be careful about this one. I tried to reposition myself. I ate an emerald apple and I was ready to go in again. Jimmy was gonna stand no chance against me. I wanted to get him to see if he dropped some crazy gear. And he dropped an uncommon item. So all that battling and almost dying just gave me an uncommon. Luckily, I did find another guy, and Lauren was going to give me some new good stuff. Sadly for me, Lauren didn't give me that crazy items. Like, it wasn't anything mythic or crazy legendary, but hey, it was something. Later on, I also found the skeleton base. Now, this skeleton base had a ton of mobs that were already enhanced, just waiting for me to get inside. These guys were going to try to kill me, but I was getting stronger each day, and I was able to take these guys on easily. I also found a pretty cool map that I didn't know what it does, and I fought another dragon. Now, this guy was a little bit easier to deal with until he started spewing fire, which was really scary. So I tried to get into the water to evade him, but that was not working. So I tried to get away and I lost a ton of health, as you can see here. I explored the lavender fields deep into the night and I was moving like crazy. Have you ever seen somebody move like this? I bet you haven't. After the lavender fields, it was the snowy mountains and I found some ice creepers. Now, I should really be careful with this health remaining because, well, if I die, the whole world gets deleted. So I went to bed really quickly and I wanted to restore my health. But I just didn't make it in time and the day had already started. So I mined up some bookshelves in order to raise my gathering experience and we were back on the way, regaining health and conquering dungeons, just the way I like it. After that, it was finally time to conquer this ice dungeon. I thought this was a mid-tier kind of dungeon. I also found one of these dread dungeons type of thing. You can't mine the outside, but you need to kill liches in order to get keys. After that, I found another illager structure. Now, I thought that this structure would hold some really good loot because it was heavily guarded by pillagers. Also, there was this black iron golem, but it was pretty easy to take it down. In the middle, there was an obsidian structure, and there were spawners all around it, and chests in the middle, which held a ton of basic resources, metals, and enchanted gear, as well as some holy water, which is really cool. I collected all of the loot, and then I raided another dome tower. This time it gave me a pretty good ancient iron chestplate, which was insane. This thing gave some extra health and extra defense. I then slept and I felt revitalized. I ate an emerald apple and I was back to killing the dragon. Equipped with the holy water, I was ready to go ham. This dragon was not gonna stand a chance. He still had a lot of health, but I was feeling confident and I was feeling kinda cocky, I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to get my dragon slaying leveled up so I could finally use dragon bone items. I found a safe spot to bow this guy down from, but I was feeling a little bit scared. So I returned again and I finished him off. And with that we had slain another dragon. My Dragon Slayer level was up to 1.77, so we were getting really close to level 2. After collecting all the materials, I made my first set of dragon scale armor. So with the dragon scale leggings and a flame dragon bone sword, I was feeling great. Now, this weapon needed Dragon Slayer 7, so I still had a long ways to go. I raided another cool structure. This time it was an ice pyramid, but it kind of blew up before I was able to get the loot. I wasn't feeling discouraged, so I went right back to exploring. From day 70 to 75, I spent a long time trying to conquer dungeons and getting a ton of experience. I needed to get more trinket slots, I needed to enhance more gear, and I needed to get a ton of different enchanted books. I was also using and messing around with a little bit of these bombs, and they were really fun to use. It also increased my magic level, which was pretty cool. These mobs were an absolute menace, however, because they had a ton of health, and they were just ganging up on me, setting me on fire, poisoning me, but I used another bomb and everything was great. I also raided the lower levels of one of those roguelike dungeons, and man, the loot in here is pretty good. I found golden coins, enchanted diamond gear, and some really strong artifacts. Like you see here, I now have a thunder staff, which I can use to just thunder everything down like Zeus. These lower levels, however, were very, very dangerous. They held a ton of ender pearls, which was really good in order to use to make the new mob portals. But I also had to deal with all of the mobs with different gear. For example, you can see the zombie here. He has a sword, he has some really strong armor, but it seems like they drop trinkets. So the higher or stronger a mob is, the more chance they have to drop a trinket maybe. Now I was finally able to get another book leveled up, and I was hoping for something really overpowered because I put 4 really good books in. So I was hoping that with 40 levels would give me some strong stuff. I also got a choice reward for an artifact, so you know I had to get the Golem kit. The Iron Golem is just too strong, man, come on. I also made some Eyes of Ender, and I wanted to start looking for the End Portal, because the End Portal was a really big thing in this mod pack. After many tries with my 2 eyes, I finally reached a destination which I thought could be potentially close. So I put a furthest point on my map so I knew where I had to start off again if I had some new Eyes of Ender. I also started opening the buddy packs, because if you open enough buddy packs and you complete the collection, you can actually get permanent bonuses like speed and haste and strength. So that was definitely something I had to get into. In the Nether, I was trying to explore a little bit more while mining quartz on the way, getting some fire resistance, and then swimming around the lava pool and raiding some piglin dungeons. Nothing too crazy happened here. I don't think the Nether is that stacked with stuff, but it is really stacked with mobs, however. But these piglins stood no chance. I also leveled up my archery to level 40, which was big. I had a total of 80% bonus damage in archery. I also got a cool new bow of the Lost Souls and some more enchanted stuff. Back in the overworld, I was still exploring, looking for some new stuff. After a while, I found another Hydra, and I thought I could take this guy down, but I was let down once again. The damage that these guys deal is insane. I did, however, get some more archery experience, which was really nice. After a while, I got dropped into a lava lake right next to an illager town, and I wanted to take my revenge. I was going to take all of them down using my mage and my new diamond sword. Inside of the illager tower, I was raiding, pillaging, and looting. I was becoming the pillager. Inside, I found a burst gale bow, which looked pretty cool, and a lifesteal aura, so it passively increased my lifesteal's effect. I also found of my first Vitae armor piece, which increases my health. I also repaired all of my armor, which was really expensive, by the way. And then I slept the night away. A quick note for everybody, I am sorry that the audio is currently gone from the gameplay, but my file got corrupted for these 10 days and I was trying to fix it ASAP, but it did not really work. So for now, until day 82, we'll have to do it with no gameplay audio, so you'll just get to enjoy my voice. Alright, I was figuring out if the MMORPG had some hidden skills that I could benefit from, but it didn't seem to be that way. So I went to raid Las Vegas. Now, this place is swarming with mobs that have over 100 health, which is insane, and they throw fire bombs. So I thought I'd bomb them back, but that didn't really do any damage. But my main goal in trying to raid Las Vegas was going up to the top floor and raiding all of those membranes from the phantoms. That was my #1 priority. Also because the chests at the top of this dungeon have some really good stuff. So I found my first phantom and this guy was enhanced. My iron golem actually started to kill me instead of the named mob that I was trying to fight. So that's really cool. William the Manly. I bet he dropped some real good stuff. And I was mistaken. Like always, these named mobs do not give me good shit. I did find some extra experience, some buddy packs, and some random miscellaneous stuff. So I put them all in my backpack and I was going to store them in my storage system. I also got a lost page of Necros. That was pretty cool. Back at home, I wanted to finally enchant that special chestplate and I got a Sage's Blessing on it. So it gives me extra experience. I then used up all the remaining experience bottles that I found in my adventures and we were starting to look pretty good. But I stumbled across another problem. I had to expand my storage system yet again. I think I've already hooked up more than 50 chests to this system, so it is really crazy that it's already filled up. This mod pack is so packed with stuff, it is amazing. It's like every hoarder's dream, I mean, come on. Later I was enchanting some level 1 bows in order to scrap them into books and then combining them. I also made a soulfire campfire so I could dissect the mythic affix from one of the items and make a mythic affix book so I could stack the mythic affixes. I then found a windmill and my game was getting a little bit buggy. The good thing being that my iron golem was putting in work and I looted up a bunch of emeralds. There was also a lot of gold and a lot of iron, some food, so this place was really good. Sunrise came and it was finally day 80. We're getting to the end of this series, guys, so if you liked the series so far, please go ahead, like and subscribe, tell your thoughts down below, and tell me what mod pack you want to see me play next. I am still looking out for new mod packs. I know Bastilla dropped some new dope shit. There is a Dark Souls MMORPG kind of pack. I really want to get into that, but we'll see what happens next. For now, I'm gonna just try to complete these 100 days without dying, so I hope we can do it. Alright, back to the video. I was inside one of the illager structures and I was getting raided by these Vexes. Now these Vexes are an annoying piece of shit to deal with because they are so small, fly so fast, and deal a lot of damage. I did, however, get to another obsidian stash, and I know these places have a ton of materials inside of them. So this is the perfect thing to loot whenever you are early game, mid game, or late game. The wood, the gold, the iron, it is amazing. After that, I wanted to diverge a little bit more into some different weaponry, and I made a two-handed diamond sword, which I wanted to fully enchant. And after fully enchanting it, I looked pretty cool. Wielding a dual-handed sword in one hand is always a cool thing to do. I did have to get rid of my shield, but I thought that was going to be no problem. I also raided another illager mine, and this held a lot of coal, gravel, and stone, which was really good. Back in the desert, I also raided up another temple, another pyramid. I killed a ton of illagers and raided up this structure again. I was trying to speedrun looting as many structures as possible because I wanted to get some OP gear. And that's when I found something that I really shouldn't have found yet. I found the Iron Maiden structure. Now, this structure is written in red because it is super difficult. There are so many mobs everywhere. There are netherite mobs, there is phantoms with skeletons that have super strong bows on them, witches are spawning everywhere, people have dragon gear. It was insane. It is a ginormous maze and I got completely lost. I also didn't know how I could loot up the shit, so I just caved myself in and tried to loot up the place that way, which worked somewhat, but I didn't get to the really good loot just yet. I think I had to get the spawners, and oh yeah, there it is. A combo star 5, that is a really good enchantment. I wanted to loot up as much as possible before my golden apples would run out, because this place is absolutely packed. There are so many mobs, and my void dodge was not doing me any good. So I teleported home, and I saw that my helmet broke, So that was another protection 3 or 4 piece that I just lost. I was feeling sad and I needed to sleep this pain away. And hey, look at that, we got sound again. So, when we have the sound again, we go exploring. And I accidentally killed this goblin trader, which spawned another one. I then got around to looting up another obsidian structure, and I killed another python. And these were a little bit more difficult to kill than I thought. Back above ground, my void dodge did me good, and I was exploring again. I made it to the pine meadows, and I looted up another ruined nether portal. This one had a ghost skin talisman, which is really good. It does lower my attack speed by 50%, but it makes me impervious to all arrows. And with that spider, I leveled up my combat to 58. During the night, a lot of mobs spawned, and I got an oxalis trinket, which was really cool. I had to get away from this place because there were too many mobs spawning. I then killed another python, and I found a jungle pyramid, which was really cool. I hadn't seen these ones before. Sad part being that they spawned a ton of silverfish and my void dodge pushed me into one of the dungeons nearby. But I did find another named mob, so this was my chance to get some really good loot. Mr. Zaplin wasn't that all too strong, so I could just easily finish him off with my sword. I also got the Cloud trinket. Unlocking another Heart of the Earth was really good. And in the morning time, I found a village. It was a nice break, chilling around in this village before I looted up another dungeon. And I got a notch apple, which was good stuff. I also found another named mob, I thought, but this was just a normal dungeon. No named mobs in sight. And then it was time for dragon slaying. I wanted to increase my dragon slaying level, so I drank the life-saving potion and went straight for this guy's head. I had the giant diamond sword, which was putting in absolute work. The life-saving potion was also keeping me from dropping below a little too less health, and I drank another one. My helmet was taking some heavy damage, however. This was a battle of endurance. This guy had so much health that I really needed to mix and match how my armor would survive. If my boots would also break, the damage I would receive would be too great. But nonetheless, I finished off the dragon. And it was good. And I thought it spawned a friendly dragon. I don't know why, but this dragon started attacking me, even though his health bar was green. So, there was nothing else to do but kill this dragon as well. It is the Wrath enchantment, I believe, on my sword that will make it so if a mob dies by my sword, it can spawn the same mob again. And lo and behold, it did it again with this dragon. And if you didn't believe me the first time, it did it again. So I also unlocked the Serpent Tooth trinket. And my armor was breaking fast, but I could not let this opportunity slide to get this many dragons in one time. So I drank another life-saving potion, and I was going to go in again. And I was trying to loot up all these dragons because the dragon scales and the dragon bones were really valuable. And I had this other dragon glaring at me. I knew he wanted to smoke, so I whipped out the old Betsy and I was gonna go to town. But first I wanted to loot up all the dragons. After looting up all the dragons, it was time. I went back home because look at my armor. I was not gonna fight a dragon with only 2 pieces of armor. Come on, who am I kidding? After repairing my chest plate and my boots and my leggings, it was time to make a dragon bone sword. Now it also gives extra bonus to dragon slaying, but the sad part is you cannot dual wield. So there is no 50% bonus that I am able to get, sadly. I thought I could break the system a little bit. Back in the dungeons, I was going at it one more time. There was another dungeon and I got teleported down to the bottom. I was really happy that I got the creeper trinket on me because that could have ended very badly. I was using the dragon bone sword and I looted up this last floor, which holds all the best gear in this dungeon. I also put some Spartan equipment enchantments on my shield, which makes it that my sword does a ton more damage when it's equipped with a shield. I also found a protection 4 armor piece, and then back at home, I finally opened an Enderman portal. And okay, pause. I know what you're saying. It's raining, it's stupid. You're absolutely right. Yeah. That's what happens when you open an Ender portal. in the raid. Yeah, I'm really fucking stupid for this one. But not to fret, I had a ton of ender pearls and a ton of coins, and I was a man on a mission. So, without further ado, we'll skip the coin process because this is just a bullshit process that takes way too long. They should have a submit all button. Come on, let's be honest. I opened a ton of treasure chests, which gave me fuck all. And then I extracted the lifesteal affix, which I put on my dragon sword, and it was starting to become a weapon of mass destruction. I also repaired all of my artifacts, and then I found this guy, the ferocious Rotnot. It was finally time to kill this boss. He is kinda scary, but I thought I was gonna be able to kill him easily. Dodging the giant cleaver, after he smashes you, hit his back. Ooh, smash down and kill him. It was pretty easy, I could kill him in 3 hits. But nonetheless, it was really cool because I finally got his gear. And then I also killed the Myrmix Queen. Now, the Myrmix Queen was a pretty easy kill, and it got me some extra loot. After that, I did a little bit more cave diving and dungeon exploring, and I went to one of the roguelike dungeons a little bit lower. I was having some real frame rate issues, so I decided to turn down my render distance and reload my world. After that, we were back to grinding, and I was using my thunderstorm and killing everything in the near vicinity. This double-handed diamond sword was putting in absolute work. And I also killed 100 strays in this dungeon already, which was really nice. My void dodge teleported me outside, and I was looking for a lot more named mobs, because these guys were going to... Oh, that's when I found the end dungeon. I finally found my stronghold. Now, it was pure chance because I was just exploring a little bit, and then I needed to find enough coins to get a waystone and put the waystone next to the portal. Now, the real cool thing about these end dungeons or these strongholds is that if you have a blank key fragment, you can use that fragment on an end portal frame and you can get dungeon keys. So there is a whole system of pre-generated dungeons you can spawn in your own base, which is really good. Those dungeons hold a lot of enchanted gear, a lot of high-level books, and some overall good loot. They also scale in difficulty. So I made a waypoint that I know where my end portal is, and I needed to return home to farm up some ender pearls. So the first thing I did was farm up some of these enderman portals. These are going to be a great way to source some ender pearls, because after I complete the portal, I will get a bonus of ender pearls. After farming up some ender pearls, I was finally ready to check out what all that noise on top of my mob farm was. And apparently something placed a spawner there, which was weird. I also spawned one of the spawnable bosses. This one was a skeleton fish in the sky. Now this guy looked a little bit menacing. He also had a lot of health, and he shot exploding orbs. So I wasn't really sure how to deal with him, and I first started bowing him down. I wanted to get his health down, and I thought he would work like a wither, where if he drops down to a certain health, he will start coming towards me in melee range. Sadly, this was not the case, so I just had to keep bowing him down. It was as easy as that. My knowledge of death increased, and I got an achievement for Strong Undead. Now I needed to figure out what I would make with this guy's drops. First, my void dodge teleported me back into the dungeons, and then I checked out what I could make. I also made some emeraldite leggings. And then I found out I could make these bone makers, which give me +2 attack damage, and I can put it in a hand slot. After that, I made the soul bell, or haunted bell. This would spawn the third and final spawnable boss, and this guy was enchanted with 2 stars. So this guy was pretty crazy. He had an orange health bar and he had 1,000 health. So this was a real boss. He shot all of these weird bell type things that deal a lot of damage, and I needed to make sure I kept on dodging him. My sword was putting in a lot of work, dealing 44 damage a hit, and then I used my bow to take off a little bit more health. This guy was going to start spewing a lot more bells, and it was starting to get a little bit crazy. My void dodge teleported me under the base, and that's when I got trapped by his CC. This guy was able to stun me in place, and that was a real death wish if I stayed in there. Finally, he made his way into my mob farm, and that's where I was able to finish him off, because I could just easily kite him and kill him that way. The last couple of hits were dealt, and the fight was over. Back at my base, I decided to craft another one and kill him one more time. I also claimed all of the quest experience, and then I made a lexicon, a book of the monsters. There wasn't really anything from the Haunted Bell that I could make that was interesting, so I wanted to focus a little bit more on the end game. So, having farmed up a lot of Endermen and getting more Eyes of Ender, it was finally time to return to the end portal. I had enough Ender Pearls, well Eyes of Ender, to open the gates to the end. We were going to fight the Ender Dragon in these 100 days. So I went to my waypoint and I started digging straight down. I also bought a waystone from the shop and I was going to place it next to the portal. First I had to kill this cow. Then I placed all of the Eyes of Ender and the portal was opened. I placed my waystone down and I called it End Portal. And now I wanted to first figure out how those pre-generated dungeons work. So I got some blank keys. I went back to the end portal and I used the key on an end portal, which gave me the achievement for seeking the first adventure. I had to make a structure like this with the acquired blocks in order to be able to open the dungeon. So I cleared a little bit of space in my base and I started crafting the structure. After crafting the structure, I was not able to open the portal until I put the key in the top. And there we go. My first pre-generated dungeon had been spawned. Now in this dungeon there are a lot of different puzzles and traps that are hidden in plain sight, as you can see here. I will open the chest, get a crown portal block, and everything blows up. So it is quite dangerous. Now the crown portal block, as you see, this is a block that is used in order to upgrade my portal, so I can go into more difficult dungeons and of higher rarity. Now I was really lucky to already find one in the first dungeon I went in, because you only need 2 and you can already start getting more and more loot. As you can see, these chests in the common dungeons even drop gas tiers, which is really big. I first fought off a Vindicator, and I wanted to press the button again because I thought it would give me loot. And I was right. This gives me a chest, which had Wild Rage and Unbreaking 3. So the common dungeons already have a ton of good stuff. Clearing these dungeons were pretty easy because my gear was starting to get pretty good on day 88. And I was having some difficulties trying to figure out the puzzles. It's not always that easy, especially when you have Void Dodge and you get teleported above your dungeon. So I was really happy that I have a magic mirror to get back home, because otherwise I don't know what I would do, because you cannot break inside. Back in the dungeon I also got a book that said that these dungeons are a good place to find loot. Sadly I wasn't able to take those diamond gears. I made my way to the end of this dungeon and there was another portal key. So I got an uncommon dimensional portal. Sadly I could not mine those crown portal blocks. The rest of day 89 I also spent going into the dungeons, claiming more quests for killing mobs, and then trying to loot more stuff. I was looking for that second crown portal key because I really wanted to be able to go into higher difficulty dungeons. I felt ready. Then I did a lot of gaming, some hardcore gamer moments with this minecart, and then I met some traders. There is apparently also mazes in this dungeon. And then it was time to go back to the overworld. I needed to take a small little break from the dungeoneering just to take a breath of fresh air. And I wanted to do that by killing the Wither. Sadly, you cannot spawn the Wither in the overworld, which was really weird. So we had to go back to the Nether in order to spawn that Wither. I also enchanted all of my gear with protection 3 and reinforced, which was really good. And then it was time. We were going to the Nether. I wanted to spawn the Wither in order to upgrade my game to the next level. Now, I wasn't really thinking this plan through because I didn't think about that the Wither could be enhanced as well. And this guy was enhanced. You'll see in just a second. I thought I was completely prepared. I ate a golden apple and then this guy spawned. But he had 1,000 health and he had regeneration. Also, my bow was barely dealing any damage, which was kind of scary. But as you can see in the top left corner, this guy was regenerating all of the health really quickly. And I was taking rapid damage to the durability of my armor. My archery did level up a little bit, but still my damage was nothing compared to his regeneration. So sadly I had to decide to dip out and kill the Wither another time. It kinda got me down a little bit. We were at day 90, 91, and I couldn't kill the Wither. So I had to go back to the dungeoneering in order to get some better gear because I wanted to get a power 5 bow. After a while I got my second portal block and I was able to upgrade my portal. And there we go, the uncommon portal had been finished. Now these puzzles were a little bit more difficult, and you know I kind of go monkey brain, go brrr. I did not want to do the puzzling, I just wanted to kill and loot, because that's why we play mod packs, right? Come on. I found a cake, it was suspicious, like a trap, and then I found another key, which was really cool. The rooms were starting to get bigger and the mobs were starting to get stronger. But I didn't mind because this meant extra experience. I also fought some elementals and snipers. And back at home I stashed all of the gear. I took out some life-saving potions in order to go for the next thing. I was starting to prepare to go to the end. I opened a lot of more buddy packs because I really wanted to get that speed bonus, which would be insane. So I started putting everything in my buddy card binder, and it looked like I was going to complete the set pretty easy. But I was let down because I did not complete the set. I was still missing a couple of cards. Back in the Nether, I also found out that there is a dungeon like this. There is drop bears and different types of elementals, and the ghasts look, well, weird. I was exploring a little bit more until I found a bastion. Now a bastion is really good for golden blocks and some enchanted gear. So the first thing I did, of course, was get those gold blocks. You know I want that money, baby. After getting all of the gold, it was time to dip. I needed to find the chest ASAP and get the hell out of this place. And I actually found the chest, and it had a lodestone and a couple of enchanted items. Nothing too crazy. The Swift-footed 3 was pretty nice, which gives me a speed bonus. And I claimed the quest for a lodestone. You could make a hypogeal Imperium with it, which I have no idea what it does. After claiming all of the experience that I had, and gathering more goblin traders apparently, it was time to infuse a bookshelf. I had made my first infused bookshelf, which was really big. I could make a crystalline sea shelf with this, but I instead made a hard forged sea shelf. This recipe was pretty expensive, I gotta say. But this meant my enchantments would be even better. I could enchant up until level 49, which was really good. And that's when I found a Vitae 5 on my boots, which was major. Then I spent a good time looting up some more pre-generated dungeons because I wanted to find that power 5. I almost got trapped by these piglins who had set up gravel all around them in order to get my ass. But it was impossible for them to trump me because I was stronger. Back at home, I was enchanting my emerald leggings and I got some pretty strong gear going right now. As you can see on my armor bar, we are almost at 1.5 armor bars and we are on our 3rd health bar. I wanted to see if I could enchant some gold gear because normally in mod packs gold gear has a higher enchantability. I could scrap those enchantments for books and then combine them or put them on my new gear. The only thing I didn't realize is that it is incredibly expensive. But nonetheless, after enchanting everything, I was feeling stronger than before. I repaired all of my armor and we were back in the Nether. I also found a Nether pyramid, which was really cool. I mean, just look at these things, they look so aesthetic. And normally the gear should be better as well. But first, take out the trap. There is always a trap underneath these and you do not want to get blown up. I got a phalanx too, which is pretty okay. And then these items had some crazy enchantments. Leech 3 knockback slayer, it was amazing. I also found these weird blackstone dwarfs. Now I looted up this place, but it didn't seem like there was anything too crazy inside of them. I also found another Nether fortress, which was big news, because these usually hold some pretty good stuff. And that's when I found a spellstone. Now this is pretty cool because it gives me a lot of passive abilities. Immune to fire, temporary immunity to lava, burns those who attack you, heavily improved vision in lava, and any status effect applied to you will tick down twice as fast. So it is really strong. Like this is the Nether relic. After that I also found some magma walkers and some random artifacts. And I gotta say, this run to the Nether was really good. I put my backpacks in my extractors, and as you can see, I also got some monster coins, some dragon's breath, and I also got a lot of enchanted books. So we were finally starting to have a good run. We were getting steadily our XP up, we were getting our enchantments up, and we were getting artifacts in order to boost ourselves. I wanted to take off the leech and put it on my dragon sword. Now this sword was starting to get really strong. I was feeling ready to take on the Ender Dragon. We were right now on anywhere between day 97 and 99. So it was getting really close. We had just 2 more days to kill the Ender Dragon. So after saving up all of my life-saving potions, I was finally ready to make an end to this first 100 days. In the end, I found a ton of Endermen and the pillars looked a little bit different. Now, I wasn't gonna waste any time. I immediately jumped straight up and using my spider trinket, I was able to climb up these towers easily. Now, I had to make sure that I didn't blow myself up, so I did the towers one by one by jumping off and shooting the crystal. Everything was going pretty smooth, and then all the towers were finally done. Well, I missed that last one, but let's not talk about it. It's a minor detail. I also leveled up my magic, which was pretty cool. Then all the towers were finished, and all we had left to do was kill the Ender Dragon. But this dragon wasn't too keen on going down easily. He wanted to have a proper fight, but my bow was dealing an amazing amount of damage, and I was able to first chip away his health until he went to the middle, and I was going to go in with my dragon slaying sword. I needed to make sure that he spews some fire and that I could get some dragon's breath as well. And that's when I realized the dragon's breath was on the ground, so I collected all of the bottles I had in my inventory. I just collected up everything. I mean, you can never have enough dragon's breath, right? So I filled up a stack and a half of dragon's breath, and then I wanted to finish off this dragon. The fight was easier than I expected. If the dragon was enchanted or it had like a legendary affix, this would have been a real big fight. But in the next 100 days, we could always try to revive the dragon enough times to get a legendary dragon. I mean, that sounds pretty good. That would drop like a ton of experience, right? After shooting up a little bit more, this dragon was full of holes and was ready to go down. Just a couple more shots left and this dragon would be toast. It wasn't exactly easy to finish this guy off, but I had a strategy. I would climb on top of one of the towers and then I would shoot him down from the sky. There was also another crystal which gave him some extra health, but I wasn't able to locate it. So I decided to just finish him off as fast as possible. And there we go. Master mode had been unlocked. We killed the Ender Dragon. So the world's starting to become a lot more difficult. It had been a real journey, these 100 days. I collected up all of the experience and the drops from the Ender Dragon, and the egg I would claim later, as I didn't have a torch with me. Having this much experience meant that I could actually infuse a lot of shelves and make that magic library as well. That's what I realized. I claimed up some endstone as a souvenir, and I wanted to go home and claim that bag. Now in this bag was a couple of different items. These were all end treasures. Exactly. Back at home I checked out what I could all make with these end treasures, and it wasn't really anything that was too interesting immediately. With the Ender Dragon scales I could make a black dragon scale, I could make a special type of mirror, and it grants me immunity to withering, which is quite good actually. I also made a couple of end shelves because I thought they looked really cool, but they weren't that interesting to use, to be honest. I scrapped all of the normal bookshelves and replaced them with end shelves, and my enchanting table was starting to look pretty beefy. Because if I wanted to enchant now, I could go all the way up to level 80. After that, I needed to make a couple of hell shelves, so first I smelted down some netherrack, and I wanted to make the library. Because the enchantment library is, I wouldn't say overpowered, but it is incredibly strong. You can just chuck in all of your enchanted books and you can take out any level of enchantment in book form you want. So if I put in 20 level 1 sharpness, I can get a level 5 sharpness book out of it without having to spend all the levels on it, which is insane. This will make 200 days so much easier. I first had to infuse 4 hell shelves. This was really pricey, but with a little bit of luck, I was going to be able to get this library. This library was going to put myself in a really good position, and we were almost at the end of our 100 days, so it was one of the things that was really on my bucket list. I made the last Eye of Ender, and I was going to be ready to make it. I was so stoked to make this thing. This is like something I've always dreamed of in a mod pack, to have like an enchantment library. It is such a cool mechanic. After finishing up that Eye of Ender, it was time to put together all of the things. I made my last ender chest, I put the enchantment table in, my 4 infused bookshelves, and my 4 ender chests, and it was done. The library was finished. I placed down my C shelves again and my end shelves, and then it was time to put my library down. And look at this. This interface is so cool. I took out all of my enchanted books because I needed to put everything inside. And as you can see, this thing is pretty overpowered. And it has a ton of storage. Look at that. So I can pick and choose any enchantment I want. I can enchant as many books as I want and just put them all inside of that library. Also, if you have multiple enchantments on a book, it will put in all of the enchantments separately, which is insane. Back in the end, I wanted to explore a little bit more. I needed to get an elytra. I definitely needed to get an elytra. So after trying a little bit to get inside of this end city portal, I was finally able to make it. The remote gateway had been opened and we were in the end city's dimension. Now this looked an awful lot like Fantasy Realm End, but I saw a giant phantom on top of the world. And I wanted to see what that was. It seemed like there was some really good loot inside. So using all my artifacts, my flying book, my levitation, and my angel's blessing, I was able to just shoot my way straight up. The enormous phantom had been reached. Now, these phantoms looked a little bit different than what I was used to. They also gave me levitation, which was really weird. I wasn't sure what these guys were. They looked like the color of a shulker box. And they're an end keeper. I wasn't sure what that meant. I did see 2 fat chests on top of this giant. So I wanted to loot up the chest instantly, and oh boy, look at that. Enchanted books, ender pearls, and diamonds. I mean, who doesn't get happy from that? After a while, I also heard some really strange noises, and it looked like there was some kind of mutant enderman nearby. And lo and behold, look at those guys. They look menacing. So there was a blasting, and there was that giant thing that I saw, but I didn't find it again. I was confused. These things looked menacing. Those blastlings stood no chance against me. And the normal endermen, of course, also didn't stand any chance. It was pretty cool to see some variations in endermen in the end dimension. I also looted up what looked like a stranded spacecraft, and I found an Ifrit's Blessing 5, as well as a lot more ender pearls. I mined up some of the local blocks to have as a souvenir, or maybe if they are needed for a crafting recipe. And then I saw a giant island which I wanted to check out. It was, however, really difficult to get up there. But after a little bit of trial and error, I was able to make my way up. And this looked like some type of crater from a meteor. There was also random ores in the middle of it and a lot of new endermen. This was a watchling. These guys were watching this place, I guess? But not to fret, I was able to kill them easily and get those ores. I felt like this could be really good. Lignite. Oh, everybody's gonna make Ligma jokes, but don't. This is Ligmite, not Ligma. Get it right. After arriving in the Umbra Valley, I found some pretty cool stones. And it was pretty cool because it looked like some type of ore, but it wasn't. I also got attacked by another strange enderman. And after that, I found an end shard. After destroying this block, all nearby endermen will attack you, which was pretty crazy. It looked like this was some real strong metal or some strong, yeah, like the advancement says, I am confusion. It was really weird. I did, however, in the process, scrap my chest plate, and I almost got tapped by those endermen. So back at home, I stored away all of my findings that I got from the end cities, and I checked out what that end shard could make. Now with that end shard, you can make an end ingot, and with that end ingot, you can enhance some gear. Now, an end sword is pretty strong because it has 9 attack damage, and it only requires level 36. So you can make an enderite sword and then lower the level for the combat rating if you infuse it with an end ingot. And with that, we had completed our 100 days of Hardcore RAD 2. Man, what a video. I really hope you guys liked this video. It was a ton of fun for me to make. It took a long time to make, holy shit, but it was a lot of fun. The channel's growing steadily. We reached 1,000 subs. I'm really happy, and I hope you guys' day has been going well. leave it down in the comments. Alright guys, see you in the next one. Peace out!